when it comes to evaluating talent, comparing candidates directly with one another, it can lead to decisions based on unconscious bias, and falling into the trap of looking for a candidate who is similar to me, right? The person who's conducting the interview. And so always keeping that North Star is like, okay, how does this person to compare to the requirements? It needs to be, the consistent theme. Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Stephanie Kramer, and I'm the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at Iron Bow Technologies. I've been in the recruiting space for, I don't know, 17, I don't know, I'm dating myself, for a good long while, and have held leadership positions in both TA and HR, but my specialty is recruiting. So as most people in the field, I didn't set out to be in recruiting. I had majored in computer science because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and the practical side of me figured computer science that would be job security. So upon graduation, I got a job as an IT project manager, and big surprise here, someone who's not really invested in computer science, I found myself getting bored. And so I had some friends in IT sales. But I had fears of kind of just this picture of a sleazy salesperson in my head, and I knew I couldn't do that. But about that time, I got a call from a large staffing firm by the name of Kforce. They reached out to me, and the rest is history. I'm a huge podcast listener. As a mother of two, I have very little time to myself. And so I find that when I commute, either to taking the kids to school, or the occasional time where I head into the office, I turn on my podcasts, and it's been a great source for me. And there's multiple talent acquisition and HR podcasts that I follow. I'm a huge fan of Josh Berson's podcast. I like The Modern People Leader. I like, what else do I like? Hiring on All Cylinders is a newer one. That was such a cool experience for me. I didn't know who I was going to be on a panel with, but I was on this panel with Steve Cadigan, who is the legendary CHRO out of LinkedIn. So that was a big, big shock. I was a bit starstruck. And Laura Robley is quite the heavy hitter as well. They were both on it with me. But for me, it was a real learning experience. I got to dig into a topic that I hadn't really had time to explore. And I think there's just some misconceptions about Gen Z, out there that it really helped me learn more about. So they're known for being resourceful, independent leaders who value diversity, and really just having well-being and mental health in the workplace. I think there's a misconception that they're just money hungry, and I don't think that's the case. I think they're desperately craving security and stability. If you look at this generation, some of them were born, before 9/11. They might have had a parent lose a job in the 2008 financial crisis. So, they could have heard living room talk about fears over making ends meet. They've seen global warming events, COVID, inflation. So I think they're craving stability, and they really want, mental health and well-being to be a part of it, and just mission alignment is huge too. So it was a real big learning experience for me. It's tough. Luckily, I really enjoy what I do, because if I didn't, I just don't think this would be sustainable. But the way it's worked for me, and look, I'm one person who knows if it'll work for other people, but it's really approaching the work in a real blended model. There's really not much of a difference between, okay, now is my work time. Okay, now is my family time. Now is, my time. My time doesn't really exist that much these days. But I find myself waking up before the rooster crows, and just sitting down with my cup of coffee because it's nice and warm and it's quiet in the house. And so I start my day, at 0 dark 30 in the morning. And then it's like, okay, well, the kids wake up. So I'm going to go focus on them for a little bit, get them fed, get them off to school. Then I plug back into work. But, there's times where it's like, okay, well, I'm traveling back from dropping the kids off, and someone on my team calls me, and it's a real blended model. And luckily I have an employer that really supports that kind of hybrid approach to it. It doesn't happen all the time, but if I am needed at 7 o'clock at night, it's just like, okay, yeah, sure. What's going on? Is there a problem? So it's just a real blended model. And I try and carve out time for myself as well, just because I think that makes me a better employee and someone who can bring fresh perspective in. It has a lot. When I started in the business, I think I need to also disclose that, that was at a staffing firm. And so the focus, not to disparage staffing firms in any stretch of the imagination, but the focus is different. It's just like, let's close deals. That's the main intent. And so when I started, it was just, what are the hard skills? Can they do the job? Can they get in there and make it happen immediately? And, as time passes, I think there's just been a realization that soft skills actually are the hard skills. And in business, we don't do business with strategies or with services or with products. We do business with people. And at the end of the day, the emotional intelligence necessary to navigate challenging situations. I mean, there's, slight nuance. I mean, it's probably the trickiest thing out there. And I would love to have a fancy product that tells me exactly who has strong emotional intelligence in an interview, because it's one of the hardest things to figure out. Sure. I would not be a good therapist, a counselor. Like, drawing boundaries is a really hard thing. It's impossible. Like, I pride myself on having and leading with empathy. And how can you not empathize and put yourself in these people's shoes, who, some don't struggle, some, have ease, but some do. And I think I can attribute a lot of my success earlier on in my career to taking a career coaching approach. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but after a while, you see so many different examples. It's just like, well, how can I impart that knowledge to the next person? And it has taken a toll. And it's a constant reminder. I have to tell myself, don't get too involved. Earlier in my career, when I was at a staffing firm that was primarily focused on, like I said, closing deals, I remember capturing requirements from different clients. And there was just so many DE&I flags, red flags all over it. They would say things like, I don't really care about the skills. I just need someone to look like X, Y, and Z. I need someone to sound like this. And oh my gosh, it just would always make me feel so gross inside. And thankfully, that has become less and less. But that's the one that's probably that sticks out in my mind the most. Is just something that you would just walk away with such an icky feeling. This is earlier in my career, and I didn't have the same level of confidence that I have today. So I responded in kind and was like, okay, I'm happy to see what I can find. But I think always there was a piece of me that was going to present the best candidate, based on the skills necessary to do the job. And 1 out of the 5, or 2 out of the 5 might be their special requirements, but never would I just present that. Now, as far as today. I love the influence that I have in my organization to be able to impart best practices and train on how to successfully navigate DE&I initiatives. By no means am I an expert, and I'm learning every single day. But at the end of it all, I'm not going to not a double negative there. I'm not going to not act out of fear of getting it wrong. And I think it all boils down to intention. If your intention is to learn and to create a healthy workplace for all, then that's your confidence, should be your confidence driver. For me, I think that the act of interviewing is probably the most thrilling. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a masochist, but for me, the ups and downs, the unknowns, like what questions are going to be asked. There's such a thrill in that. To speak, I've been a candidate before, right? Like I've had to go through the interview process, and like I said, going back to that masochistic side of, like, it was like I was in interviews and it was just like, okay, all right, what's the next question? Throw it at me. It was just, it was oddly fun, but yeah, that's what I would liken most to a roller coaster ride. When it comes to evaluating talent, comparing candidates directly with one another, it can lead to decisions based on unconscious bias, and falling into the trap of looking for a candidate who is similar to me, right? The person who's conducting the interview. And so always keeping that North Star is like, okay, how does this person compare to the requirements? How does this person compare to the requirements? It needs to be, the consistent theme. I was once asked by a manager, like, Stephanie, I can't help it. At the end of the day, if I have two candidates and those are the finalists, how can I not compare, the two of them together? And yeah, it's tricky. And I would say that, it's I don't know, similar to shopping, right? Oh gosh, that's terrible, making the recruiting process sound like shopping. But like if I have an event that I have to attend, and those are the requirements, I know what I need to dress like. So if I try on two different outfits and I can't decide between the two, I do. There's an element of, yes, I have to think, okay, which one fits the requirements better, right? Like which is going to make me feel better, et cetera, et cetera. So it's it is tricky, but I think especially in those earlier screening parts, the first interview especially, it's all about comparing back to the requirements. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot hire your way into growth. It is a short-sighted approach around thinking you can just throw more bodies at a problem to get it solved. To be successful, you have got to invest in your investment. You really just need to slow down to speed up, right? Take the time to ensure that talent that you're bringing on is ramped properly, that they have the tools and support necessary to do their jobs. You want to get the true return on investment. So taking care of that investment, I think is so important. I think the best way to look at AI is that of a co-pilot. It will help make you more efficient. I think it can do a lot in the way of the candidate experience. And in fact, I was on a job search not too long ago. I've been at my firm for about 4 months now, and I had an experience where I applied to a job, and within a day I had immediately been contacted and I had been scheduled for a chat style interview. And I don't know when ChatGPT made its big announcement or debut. I don't think it was in January, which is when I was on the job search. And I just remember feeling as a candidate, oh my gosh, like this company is so incredible. Like this company is striking while the iron is hot, while I have momentum, while I probably just finished a huge round of of research into this company because I'm not just going to blindly apply, right? And I immediately get contacted. And now in hindsight, I'm like, that was totally an AI agent. but I think it's so cool. Yeah, definitely quirky. I don't know if I would incorporate them into my own recruitment strategy. I think that it really depends on the type of talent that you need. If you need super creative types, then this would probably appeal to them. But I recently saw that Apple created a job ad that was hidden in random pages on the company's site. So it's like the candidates had to like figure out the riddle in order to get the job. So definitely quirky. I'm sure it uncovered some unique candidates. I don't know if I'd have patience for it myself as a candidate, but that's me. I also saw different ways for doing social media sourcing. So, if you're looking for creative types, I think Netflix ran an Instagram based contest to solicit candidates for one of its roles. So being able to tag them in their different, I think it was photography that they were going after. But yeah, definitely unique, interesting ways to uncover talent. A benefit or a funniest unexpected? Like for me, I think I mentioned this already, becoming a de facto career coach. Never did I think that I'd set out to be one. And I still don't consider myself one, although I've been told many times that I should be one. People seek me out for career advice all the time. And after a while, I'm like, I've been in this industry long enough. I do have some pearls of wisdom. So I just started posting about it on LinkedIn, especially when there were just so many layoffs. So I wanted to impart this knowledge, lessons learned, to the masses. If it can help someone, then great. But yeah, becoming a de facto career coach, that was an unexpected reality. So if I say this now, it doesn't sound as that kind of remarkable or unique or different, but I just remember someone sending me a video of themselves introducing themselves and giving them just a few little sound bites, not only on how they could be successful in a job, but just in terms of who they were a bit. And I just remember being like, oh, okay, well that's really interesting. It caught my attention. So again, probably not anything that would be that remarkable today, but at the time it was definitely caught my attention.